All right. So, do certain truth topics hold more weight than others? Are there certain spiritual or truth topics that are just more important? Is there an order to them? 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the way down. And I'm going to try to explain a little bit about my thinking of that in this video. However, I don't know the answer to that. I can't say that there's a number one or a number two, although I do feel pretty strongly about probably what's number one right now. And what number one seems to be is always what you're most recently became exposed to, whatever conspiracy or truth topic that you've most recently learned about, that always seems to be number one. Or at least, maybe not number one, but you know it when you learn about it. You're like, wow, this changes my whole perception of reality. And it's always number one. But then, shortly after that, you may learn of something new. And then that ends up being replaced with a new topic that becomes number one. That's happened to me a few times now in my journey. And I started way back in 2016 with truth. That's when I sort of got started in truth, if you will. Quote truth, whatever that means, really. I think it's more just discovering the lies, basically, than actually discovering truth, because nobody really knows what the truth is. But we can get pretty darn close, I think, for sure. So before I even get into that, I want to say that this is just, my thoughts on it. And I know that there's a lot of disagreement within the quote truth community as far as what truth topics are important, what aren't so important. In sort of like a ranking of what's most important to least important. You're going to see a lot of, in truth, there's a huge, there's just such a spectrum of truth. You have one side that it seems like it's like the closer you get, it's like you have the fear-mongering side of truth. Then you have the love and light side of truth. Sort of like that new age. But then also there's also the side of everything in this world is, everything that's presented to us is fake or some sort of deception. And then you have the other side that believes that, voting, is legit, and you can just elect a representative in there and they can change things. So it's very diverse. There's a wide spectrum in the truth community, which I think is sort of a problem, but we're all at different levels. We're all at different times within our path, our journeys. Maybe some people start a little bit further ahead, some people behind. So very wide spectrum here. However, I do think there are certain things that are more important than others when it comes to truth. I think they hold more weight. And I like to sort of give the analogy of it being like a puzzle where you have a bunch of puzzle pieces, you put them together, and then you can see more. Once you're able to put a few pieces together, you can see that piece of it. You can't see the rest of it, but then you get more pieces in there, and then you can see a little bit more, and then you can start filling in the blanks with deductive reasoning and make some guesses, some educated guesses. Getting every piece to that puzzle, though, is going to be extremely difficult, although I don't think it's absolutely impossible to get enough pieces to have a little bit of an advantage in some way. So, back to, let's say, 2016, I got into truth and all that, and, it was big Alex Jones follower when I started, really a big fan. Thought the guy was super talented and, just extremely gifted as a communicator. Just thought he was wonderful. This was before I knew about controlled opposition, before I really understood what that was. I only understood controlled opposition in maybe a very small way, maybe when it came to politics. So that was like my big politics time. I was really into politics. And a lot of people that are into politics, especially people on the right, they consider themselves truthers. Now, I can't say that they're not, quote, truthers. I mean, perhaps they are seeking the truth. There are some truths within that right-wing ideology, for sure. However, if they realized how they've stopped so short, I think it would be quite an eye opener for them, and they would be probably quite embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed because I know we all go through, sort of the pains of truth, and we learn better over time, and we realize, oh man, I was way off. My thinking was off. But yeah, I'm not embarrassed, but I would say that I guess I could look back and kind of laugh at myself, like, wow, I can't believe I believed all that nonsense from Alex Jones. Now, what he'll do is he'll give you some truth for sure, but most of it's really not truth. It's all within kind of that mainstream, or that political, that political sort of like, I can't think of the word, but thinking, or political paradigm is really what I should say, where, governments are, control their countries individually and their sovereign countries, and you vote for, your representatives, and, they have some pull when it comes to laws and whatever, or any type of legislation, or, moving the country in the right direction or whatever, or the wrong direction, whatever. But yeah, that is very much, it's a puppet show. Obviously, the world is a stage, and of course the world is a stage is a big truth, I think. That's a huge one. A lot of people that are in truth, don't see the world as being a stage, and we can certainly start with that one. So obviously in 2016, when I started, on my journey, I didn't see the world as being a stage like it is. I didn't see, when I would see, Trump up there on TV, or, going around the world and shaking the hands with his Masonic handshake that I was unaware of, shaking hands with these world leaders. I'm thinking like, wow, he's doing good. This is good. And he's going to help, create peace with these countries. I didn't see it as like just a big puppet show. Like it's just, okay, the camera's on and it's just a lot of acting going on. And then once the camera's off, well, you don't really know what's happening. The only thing that you really know or think you know is what's on camera. But it's really what's off camera that's most important. So yeah, the world being a stage for sure. That's a big one. And there's going to be a few more I'm going to mention, but I did not realize that at that time. So next, here came Flat Earth. This was big. So this was in like 2019, I would say. So David Weiss actually came on. So David Weiss, I see as controlled opposition for the Flat Earth, pushing that AE map where the sun goes around the Earth in a circle. That can't happen. That's not possible. There are many flaws with the AE map, and that's why I consider it the Flat Earth cult. Even though I do believe the Earth, at least in a physical sense, is a plane. There is no proof of curvature. There's no proof of motion either. So I don't believe we're spinning on a ball in space. Okay. So David Weiss came on Alex Jones 2019 and said, hey, the Earth's flat, man. And he gave him some pretty good evidence. And Alex Jones mostly made fun of it throughout the whole time. He was on there with Eddie Bravo, I believe, as well, who's another controlled opposition piece as well. So at the time, I did not realize that. And I actually really listened to what David was saying, and I was like, wow, this is really good information. And I had been exposed to the Flat Earth prior as well, but I just didn't really, care to look into it further because it just seemed so out there to me. It just seemed just didn't seem really possible. Although I'm very open-minded, and I really love like hearing people's cases for why they believe what they believe. I think it's very interesting. I don't think people are just crazy and just believe something for no reason. I think they do have some reason, some logical reason for believing that. So I was not against it, but I never really. I was so brainwashed and so programmed that I couldn't even look into it any further. That's how deep the programming goes. Like, you can even think that this is possible and the evidence looks really good, but you're not even going to look into it. That the next day, you're not going to go research and find Eric Dubé's videos on Flat Earth and start binge watching. It's not going to happen. It took me several months. Even it took me after David Weiss's visit onto InfoWars. So that happened. I still wasn't into the Flat Earth thing just yet. And then I found another video. It was Owen Benjamin. So Owen Benjamin, I kind of followed. I would watch his videos once in a while. He had a video. It was titled, I believe it was titled something like "The Earth is Not a Spinning Ball." And I'm like, damn, I've seen that before. I've heard of that before. I've heard people say that. Owen Benjamin doesn't think the Earth is a spinning ball. Is this just a comedy skit? What is this? So let me click on this. I clicked on it, and he gave more of the same evidence, more of the same stuff. And I'm like, man, this is 3 times now. So that is when it started for me. And that was late 2019. I started to look into the flat Earth. I binge watched Eric Dubé videos. Now, Eric Dubé and Owen Benjamin are, once again, they are controlled opposition. But this is gatekeeping at its finest. So they will gatekeep you. They will catch you at the door, and they will pull you into their cult. They will lead you off track. They'll give you some truth, okay? But their hope is that you stay there. You don't evolve. You don't use critical thinking. You don't put their model, their map, through scrutiny that it deserves, like we did with the globe model. So, yeah, binge watched those videos. And then at that point, I became a believer in the flat Earth after enough time, which didn't take too long. I probably became a believer that the Earth was not a spinning globe, probably after a couple days or so. But it really took some time to have it sink in, process, and then really after like 2 months, 3 months, it was just like a no-brainer to me. So then, at that point, flat Earth was the most important truth topic of all time. It was the most important thing ever. Is there more land beyond the ice wall? Is there even an ice wall? Or is it just an infinite plane? What is this? Are they hiding land that we could go to and have freedom? I've always been into freedom and sovereignty and all of that. So this really worked in perfectly. And then I'm thinking like, shit, is there? And I've always been a believer. I'm not anymore a believer in like a loving creator or God thing anymore, but I was always a believer in a God, in a being that was loving, and that created me and was loving, obviously, right? Should be loving, but you never think about the dark side, of course. I never considered that it could be dark. Why would I do that? Why would I actually think logically and look at this place objectively? So I did believe in a God. So that brought me even closer to God, closer to the creator, the flat Earth. Because I'm like, okay, they're creating this globe model to hide you from God, from the creator, right? They throw at you evolution, that we came from, monkeys, essentially, right? Or a monkey's ancestor. So then I was really riding that wave for a long time. So at that point, shortly after, I was introduced to numerology, gematria. I was introduced into, obviously, more fake news. And then the Mandela effect. So let's get into fake news. Let's talk about that. So that's very important. I think that goes into the world as a stage category. So if you look at it, you've got flat Earth, which is very important. That is part of the world as a stage in some way. And so is the fake news. That is part of the world being a stage. I believe flat Earth, essentially, in the moon landing, the fake moon landings, prove that the world is a stage. They're all working together. It is already a one world government. So that is something that's been the case for a very, very long time. However, they want you to think that now we're becoming, a one world government. That's what we want, a one world a new world order. However, this has been going on for a very long time. The world is a stage. And the news, obviously, just seeing all the fakery, all the obvious fakery, and all the, the countries, obviously. Let me get back to the moon landing. So the moon landing, it's clear that the countries are all in on it because, for instance, you got the U.S. and you got Russia. They were in their war in, from the 50s all the way up until the early 90s, the Cold War. And during that time, the U.S. went to the moon and Russia didn't. And they wanted to get to the moon. It was like a race. It was a race to space. And guess what? The U.S. won out, clearly faked. All you have to do is just look at the footage, look at the evidence, and you can make up your own mind that it did not happen. It was like that song by the Red Hot Chili Peppers that is, created in a Hollywood basement, because that's exactly what it was. Just Hollywood. I don't have to go into that anymore. You can do your own research on that. So why wouldn't Russia just say, hey, U.S., they faked the moon landing. They didn't go to the moon. They're not better than us. They're not exceptional at all. They're not superior to the USSR. So they didn't do that. No other countries did either. I mean, clearly, China has sent probes and things to Mars and whatever, and those are clearly faked, but nobody points that out. Also, the map itself. So you got the globe map, you got the GPS, you have all that put together, and the map's wrong. So the globe map is wrong, but they're all on the same page with the map. So that's another clue that they're all working together. And then another aspect to the world being a stage is simply all these actors we see on television. So the news, which they legally can lie to you on the news. They don't have to tell you the truth. It's legal to do that. It's entertainment, essentially. That's what they're doing. And, just simply these puppets that are out there, the politicians, the actors, the bang bang events that happen in the witnesses, or the people that were involved in those bang bang events, the Duper's Delight, all the fakery there. So that clearly you can tell that, we're just sitting back and we're just watching a movie, essentially. So everything on TV, the radio, everything that's been presented to us through education, the school systems, everything, largely, any of the really important things are a deception. It's mind control. That's what makes this world a stage. So there's so an example would be, let's say a foreign leader says something that you think sounds good. It sounds like it's pro-freedom, okay? And you say, hey, see, look, the leader in Africa, he is for the people. He's 100%, not 100%, but he's for the people. He's saying some good things. Yeah, maybe he's a little bit controlled. There's a little bit of pressure. But you know what? He's speaking on his own. I will say, you can disagree. I will say he's not speaking on his own. He's not allowed to speak on his own. He has a script. He has to say certain things. He has to stick to the script, or he's not going to be in that position anyway. And that's where Freemasonry comes into play in secret societies. So this can be proven. The Freemasonry is not a big secret. So what they do as far as like their intentions, their signs, their symbols, the numerology, it's all right there in plain sight for you to see. So the symbolism is everywhere, and it's very obvious. And these politicians and these world leaders, these individuals, they will shake hands using their Masonic handshake. They will wear things with Masonic symbolism on them. They will do different hand signs, all different types of hand signs that are Masonic as well. So when you're seeing that happen across the board, east to west, different world leaders using the same symbols, then that is in addition to many other things, just like the cover-up of the flat earth, just like the cover-up of the fake moon landing. It all works together, that the world is, in fact, a stage. Even Shakespeare said the world was a stage, and we're just merely players on the stage. So it is a stage, the probably fake Shakespeare. So that all sort of pretty much proves that the world is a stage. So that the flat Earth was the first thing, the first major thing. Then learning that the world is a stage, and those are sort of interchangeable. The fake news, all of that as well. Now, I mean, they say all the same things on the news, so maybe not every time, but when there's anything that's 24/7 news that's out there, a big event, a bang bang event, a war, whatever, they all, different stations, different networks, they use the same language. They use pretty much the same script. They're all owned by the same companies or company. If you do enough digging, they're all owned by the same people. And then let's talk a little bit about numerology and gematria. Where does that play into all this? Well, that's part of the signs and symbols and the numerology, that whole topic right there. And what's important about that is that this is how these secret societies communicate. They don't communicate with words like we do. Spoken words, written words. They communicate with numbers, symbols, and signs. That is how they communicate. So if somebody wants to say that that's not important, okay, or they want to sort of like overlook the numerology aspect of things, they're missing it. They're missing it by a long mile, okay? They're probably some sort of gatekeeper, definitely controlled opposition of some sort. Gatekeeper, shill, agent, if they're telling you that these signs and symbols are, they use them themselves, and then they want to tell you, that they're not that important. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, any truther out there that pays attention, that does the research, that for years has been doing the research on these things, they see the patterns, and they see that these symbols are used all the time. And to think that they're not important, that they're not trying to communicate something with those, you're either gatekeeping, or you have a lot of learning to do, or you are in this truth seeking for the wrong reasons. You're in it for the money. You're in it for the popularity it could give you, okay, or whatever, the attention. So numerology, gematria, very important. Now gematria gets really deep. So numerology, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is Pythagorean and Chaldean. I usually just go by Pythagorean and Chaldean. I don't look too deeply into gematria. It can get really crazy. And there's really no way. I don't think there's any denying that they use gematria. I just think that there's better, as far as a topic, maybe gematria is not super high on the list for importance, but being aware of it is important. So being aware that they do use numbers, they use signs and symbols to communicate. That's important. What's not so important is knowing, at least the gematria side, because there's so many different ones, like knowing like, oh, they did this or that. Like, for instance, if anybody knows Zachary Hubbard, anybody's aware of him, he's the gematria guy, the sports gematria guy, and he basically sells you false picks and is stealing your money, essentially. He's deceiving you. He's never predicting anything with gematria. He just goes back and just ties in the numbers to whatever. And you can tie in those numbers with almost anything. So it becomes sort of like, well, this is not something I'm going to spend too much focus on. As far as like uncovering, events, fake events out there, putting it through a numerology calculator doesn't hurt. Finding the 33s and things like that. And also like Fox, for instance, FOX is 666. The letter M is a 3. Also, an E is a 3, just backwards. C is 3, so 2 C's, CC 33, things like that. Those are very common. So after I got through my, the news is fake, the world is a stage, what came up next was the Mandela effect. And the Mandela effect was something that took me a good year to see for myself. I think, so for anybody who's not familiar with the Mandela effect, it is when there has been a change within our reality. It could be something like, the Monopoly guy no longer has a monocle. And you look back in the history, you can go into your closet and pull out your Monopoly board, or Monopoly game, and see, and this could be from the 1990s, and you can see that he doesn't have a monocle, but you remembered he had a monocle. Many logos have changed. Many things have changed with Mandela effect. Land masses have changed. South America used to be, in my memory, was pretty much right under North America. Now it's pretty much Southeast America. It's over towards the east quite a bit, where it's not even below North America at all anymore. That's another one. There's many of them. There's thousands of them. You can look them up online. The Ford symbol is a big one for me. That one's changed. But it took me a year to see these changes. One of them, the one that did find, because let me just say this, it was because I didn't have one that was personal to me. There was ones that I had heard a lot about, but it was sort of like I wasn't really sure, because it wasn't something that I knew for sure, 100%. Because a lot of them were, I was a child, and those have changed. But I could say, yeah, I remember this or that from when I was a child, it being this way. But it wasn't enough. So eventually I did find things that were personal to me, where I knew 100% for sure, boom, this is a Mandela effect. And the reason that I didn't catch on so quickly, I gave it a chance for a year, and I finally turned around. But the reason that, I didn't get into it so quickly was just simply because of all the programming over 30 years plus of programming, 30 years of programming that this reality is physical, it's not fluid, and that it's just, you can't underestimate the amount of programming that we go through. So it was actually advanced auto parts. So that was the first one, the first Mandela effect for me, that I was like, damn, the Mandela effect is real. It is supernatural changes. This reality is fluid. This reality is changing. And then all those other ones that I wasn't 100% sure about, you know what? I think those changed too. So the first one was advanced auto parts. It's now advanced auto parts. And the reason for that is I had one in town, that I went to, and I had one in town. It was advanced auto parts. Now it's advanced. The other one was Depends. So Depends diapers. Now it's Depend. No S on the end. It was always Depends. And I knew that because I worked in retail, and I used to order Depends. And, I would scan it. It would say Depends on it. And I did that every week. I had to scan every SKU for Depends and order them individually. And I'm not going to get too far into that, but I knew for sure it was obviously Depends. There were a lot of jokes about Depends, that, people would tell each other. And I think some of you know those. Kit Kat bars as well. So I used to, because I worked in retail, so we would stock the candy, and Kit Kat always had that dash there between Kit and Kat. So a lot of big ones. I mean, the Monopoly guy I think is obvious. It goes on and on. I think Pikachu's tail, when I was a kid, that was big. Pokemon was big. So the black on the tail. And many more. Mr. Rogers, it's a beautiful neighborhood. Is that what he said? What did he say, honey? It's a beautiful neighborhood. No, she doesn't know. She's Chinese. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. So now it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. So, yeah, that's one that just popped into my head. And there's numerous. So Mandela effect was a big one. So when Mandela effect came out for me, that was number one. That was the biggest truth ever. That was the number one. And then number two would probably be flat earth. All right, number two would be flat earth. And that taught me that this reality was fluid. Now I had to think, okay, why is this happening? Why is our reality fluid? Why is it changing? Why would God do this? Why would the Creator do this to us and change these things? And a lot of the changes, quite frankly, kind of suck. They don't make things better. They seem to make things worse. It just like lyrics and songs, like the song, who will save your soul? When it's saying now, most of it's who will save your souls. Who will save your souls? Like that. Not who will save your soul. It was always soul, now it's souls. Kind of changes the meaning a little bit. And the Ford logo, I think, is just, I don't like it. It's kind of unsightly. The Volkswagen, how the V and the W don't attach. That to me is huge. That stands out. And you can go to logopedia.com. That's logopedia.com. That will show you all the history of the logos from the beginning to the present day and all the changes there. So if you don't believe me, there's also another thing called residual evidence or residue, which is articles, even items that have the old logo or the old what we remember before it was Mandela affected. I have a book, and it's called the Power of Selling, or Selling Power, I think it's called, and it has because I spent a good amount of time in my life in the sales profession. There's a part in the book where this was written in the 80s. He refers to McDonald's, the restaurant, as MacDonald's, M-A-C, MacDonald's. And that one, really, I'm like, really? You're going to spell the biggest, most famous or infamous restaurant of all time? You're gonna misspell that in a book that's being published, and it's going to be seen by hundreds, millions of people. So that one really stood out to me. Now, I don't really remember it being McDonald's. I was really young, I guess, when it changed, if it did change. I'd like, please comment below if you do remember it being McDonald's. I do feel like it probably was. I mean, Big Mac, M-A-C, and I can kind of remember that, but not 100% sure. I definitely remember Jiffy Peanut Butter, so anybody who remembers Jiffy Peanut Butter, let me know in the comments. That's always what we used. We bought Jiffy Peanut Butter back in the 90s. The Thinker statue. So the Thinker statue is one that is one of the bigger ones as well, where the statue, putting his fist on his forehead, like he's thinking. Now it's, I think, under the chin, around there. So that's really huge. And they actually have photos, and this is an example of residue evidence, which is they have photos of people going on like a school trip to see the statue, and they're all doing the fist to the forehead and not to the chin. They're doing the fist to the forehead, while the statue in the photo has the fist to the chin. So they're doing the opposite of what the statue's doing there. So check that one out as well. In the future, I'll probably do a Mandela effect video, and I can have visuals and all that, which will be fun. So the Mandela effect was the biggest truth topic ever for me. I'm like, wow, now we know the reality's fluid. The reality's not physical. Things are changing. Geography, anatomy, board games, musical lyrics, on and on. Movies, Magic Mirror versus Mirror Mirror on the Wall. In Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So that was like huge, but I had to make excuses like, why is God doing this? Is God doing this because, we reincarnate and it's a way so we don't remember our past? I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, especially if this is a loving creator who's wiping our mind and doesn't want us to remember our last life. Well, why is that? I mean, we could go into all that. That's for a separate video. But I find myself making more excuses to have it fit into this loving God creator, this loving creator, intelligent design that was created, and this belief that this is a loving creator after the flat earth was established, that conspiracy that pushed me more towards a loving creator and God. But then Mandela effect was kind of like, well, these changes, that kind of pushes me more towards like some sort of simulation, or that this place is like coded like a program. Now, not like a computer program like we have in our human lives, something much more advanced, definitely some sort of artificial intelligence. So the Mandela effect is huge. However, it doesn't answer why we're here. It doesn't answer where we're going. It doesn't answer what your purpose is either. So another one that most people don't talk about is the health conspiracy. Another big, big topic. Now, a lot of us were aware of big pharma. We're aware of, the allopathic medicine, getting away from nature, getting away from natural health, natural curing, and being more reliant on drugs, more reliant on drugs and surgery to heal, which has been going on, since the late 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s or so, and it's just been more and more over the years. And then, of course, with the jabs as well, that whole thing. So that whole conspiracy, a lot of us are aware of that in truth. However, what about like things like what you're supposed to be eating? Now, I'm not going to tell anybody what they should be eating because I don't really know for sure. I think you probably could, it could either be like everything we eat is bad for us and everything we eat is fine. It's okay. I don't think anything we're eating for the most part is probably doing us a lot of good. It's really our kind of the mind over matter, I think, that gets us through this life. Not so much what we're eating and consuming. I think it's more about your thoughts in your mind and how you manage your stress. But food does play a big role in all this. And I do think that the vegetarian, the vegan agenda is something to be aware of. I think it is definitely an agenda. I mean, you've got Bill Gates investing lots and lots of money into Beyond Meats or meat replacements and things like that. So, you've got the mainstream big wigs out there investing their time. They're investing their money into these things. They're speaking about these things on TV. So that's something to be very skeptical of. There's been a war on saturated fat. There's been a war on animal fat for a very long time now. There's been a war on raw foods, especially, things like raw milk is illegal in many states around the U.S. So you wonder, okay, well, if they're lying about NASA, they're lying about the shape of the Earth, they're lying about the Mandela effect, they're lying about all these different topics, okay, on the news, but they're telling the truth about what you're supposed to eat. You need to eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. That's what you've been told since you were a child. You've been told to drink 8 glasses of water per day. That is true health, and you need to stick to that. Well, we've also been taught that we need our immunizations. Sorry, that's kind of hard to pronounce. Immunizations. I'm saying it wrong. But our jabs, right? The jabs, the poke in the arm, that kind of thing. We've been brainwashed about that. We've been brainwashed about, you got to see the doctor if you're sick. You got to take that Advil. If you have a headache or you don't feel good, take that Advil, take that Tylenol, take something. So all these things, but eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. That must be true. That must be true. So I think that's another deception. I think what we're eating is a deception. I'm not saying that. I know there's like a big carnivore community out there, and I think there's tons of gatekeeping within that community. It doesn't mean that it's bad. I think if the food is sourced well, it's probably pretty good. And if your diet is based mostly animal-based, it's pretty good. Even if it is store-bought, I think that's better than eating plants as the majority of your food. I think over time you will deteriorate. Although everybody's a little bit different. I don't believe in evolution, that garbage. I don't believe in all that other science nonsense mainstream. So who knows? Maybe we're all different species. So from spiritually, from above, we're different species and we can eat different things. I don't know. Do what works for you. Do what's best. Do your own research. There's a lot of evidence out there that a plant-based diet is way less than optimal. That people lose their hair, they lose their teeth, they lose their health with these eating just plants. So I think that's a big deception. I think what we eat, what they tell us we should eat is a huge deception. And that goes way beyond the food pyramid, which is obviously a government lie, the food pyramid with all the grains and stuff at the bottom. I think most people within nutrition, the field, know that. However, it goes more than that. They'll tell you eat more fruits and vegetables. I don't believe so. So that's a big one, the health conspiracy. What to eat and water. Almost forgot. So, doctors are telling people they need to drink 8 glasses of water per day. It's 8 ounces. 8-ounce glasses. That's 64 ounces per day. I think that's wrong. I do think it's because I think water. I know that in my experience, water has dehydrated me. If I drink more water, I get more thirsty. I need to drink more. I get more dehydrated. My mouth gets dry. That's just what happens. I used to drink tons and tons of water thinking it was so good. Now, I drink very little water. I drink probably like a glass a day, maybe 2 max. And I'm talking like 8-ounce glasses, like small. I drink a lot of milk, though, a lot of raw milk. But even when I was cutting down on the water. I felt a lot better. I wasn't as thirsty anymore. If you get enough of that animal fat, that will help with your thirst. And it just helps everything. It helps against anxiety and depression and things like that, because it gives your nerves that cushion, that comfort that it needs, and it just makes you feel good and natural. But yeah, the bottom line is don't drink too much water. I don't think it's good to have your your pee be clear like water. Basically, I think it needs to be more of a yellow tint to it. But do your own research on that. Like I said, this is just all my opinions. These are just my thoughts on it. This is my experience. I've tried the plant-based stuff, basically. I mean, I did eat some meat, but not that much. I probably ate meat like once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I was eating the rest were just like rice and pasta and things like that. And I ate some eggs. Did I feel good? I felt okay, but I was like really thin and just didn't feel like I wasn't filled out. I don't think I looked real healthy, and I didn't. I got a lot of runny noses. I got a lot of congestion. I got some sore throats here and there. Not too bad. But now that I eat mostly meat and animal products, like 95% or more, I don't get the runny noses. I don't get the sore throats. I don't get all those symptoms anymore. So, hey, try whatever you think works best for you. Do it for enough time to get enough data and just make up your own mind of how you feel. This isn't a competition here, and I don't know the truth about what we're supposed to eat. I think probably everything we eat is probably just terrible for us unless we have a farm in our backyard, So that's a big truth topic there. I think that's one of the bigger ones for sure. There's a lot of vegans, there's a lot of vegetarians within the truth community, a lot of gatekeepers that are vegans and pushing vegetarian and veganism. And that's going to affect your mood. That's going to affect your health, how you feel, and your energy. And that is going to affect everything else. It's going to affect your journey, your truth seeking. I don't think it's the most important, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to what the most important is. But I think that is one that should be on the list, for sure. So now we're going to get to what I think right now currently is the most important truth topic, and that is how the hell to get out of this matrix, how to get out of this suffering pit. And it's the soul trap theory. which once again, I think is a terrible name, soul trap, but that's what we use to communicate this subject, so I'm just going to use it. But I think the soul trap right now is number one. It may not be number one a year from now, but I think it's probably always going to be pretty close to the top. There could be different variations of it. I could learn a year or two from now something so different that could change my perspective, and perhaps the soul trap is still part of that, but it's a different variation of the soul trap that I understand currently that could change everything. Why do I think this is a, quote, soul trap? Well, because every time I think objectively and truthfully about anything, it always leads me to this theory of the soul trap. It makes me wonder why animals have to eat animals alive and they have to suffer. I mean, literally attacking them, eating them alive, chewing into their flesh while they're still living. And that is something that they have to go through, and then if we witness it, we have to see that suffering. Children, small children getting abused by their parents, getting abused by other adults in ways that I probably should stay away from talking about here on this wonderful free speech platform, YouTube. But, children being born blind, deaf, with some disorder, being born deformed. Now, you could say, well, if they're deformed, they don't know any different. They could still be really happy. And that's something that I do think about a lot. I really do. I ponder that. Like, well, if they're blind, they don't know what it's like to see. They're not going to gain happiness or lose happiness based on their blindness because that's all they've ever known. They could still be super happy, have a great life, because it's based on their perspective and what they can compare it to. However, if this in fact is a soul trap, I think being blinded could very much easily work against you. Being blinded or deaf, it will work against you. I mean, think about it. If we have any advantage whatsoever by having our vision, having our hearing, the advantage is, of course, learning about this matrix, learning about this reality as much as we can. How much does not having that ability, the sight, the hearing, affect those to learn about this reality so that they can make a decision and then give themselves a chance to find a different place or have a different experience when they're out of here? It may very well hold them back because they're in a situation where they're reliant on somebody else. And we know that being reliant on somebody else is probably one of the worst things you can do in your life. Being a child, you're susceptible to your parents' decisions. Being somebody who is disabled is going to be reliant, which is going to make them susceptible to others' decisions. They can't even remotely come close to being able to make their own decisions. Especially when young and as they grow up, they're still going to be reliant to some degree and very trusting, very trustworthy of society, of the mainstream, because they can't see or they can't hear. So very important. I think it's a disadvantage. And if we're going to have, why do I think it's a soul trap? Well, it's all about suffering. That's the number one thing. That's what I'm trying to get at here. The suffering. As you get older, eventually you're going to break down and you're going to suffer. Just seeing like the way the world is going, seeing what the children have to go through and what they're being brought up into in this world and programmed is hard to see. It's hard to look at. There's just numerous things. At work, you have to play politics at work. You can't be yourself. You can't be a truth teller at work. You'll lose your job, essentially. Just everything. The list goes on and on. We have natural disasters. Now, how much of those are created by our government, I don't know. But I think natural disasters are a part of this realm. Without any government, and then, of course, everything eating each other like animals and, then humans having to eat animals as well. And living things like plants. Plants are living as well. So not a place that I would have created if I was a loving God. It would be a place to basically, well, torture other people, teach a lesson to others, and that's not what I would do. So why would God do it? Why would the loving Creator do it? I guess we just deserve this, and we deserve the mind wipe as well. And of course, that's another soul trap proof, is the mind wipe. Now, before that, the reincarnation theory, you have to sort of like cement that in and see the reincarnation as being a reality first. So reincarnation is a reality based on the evidences from NDEs, based on accounts where children would remember things from their past life. So I do see reincarnation as a very, very good possibility, very likely. And if that's the case, then your mind's being wiped and you don't remember your past life or lives. And that just makes it extremely difficult to learn here. And many will say that it's our spirits, it's to learn, have our spirit learn. And this is a school of some sort. Well, with the mind wipe, that makes it extraordinarily difficult to be able to learn. You can't learn off of what you learned in your last life. You have to start all over again. You got to learn how to walk and talk. You have to learn, math again, everything all over again. So, and this is probably a good topic for another time, which would be why I do believe in the soul trap theory. However, I wanted to get into a little bit of it because I do think it's the most important topic right now. If I were to go in any order, I would say that is the most important. The second most important, I would say, would be, now there could be some I'm missing here, and if I am, please leave them in the comments below. But this is just based on what we've discussed so far, and I think all of these are very important. So the soul trap would be number one. The Mandela effect, I think, is number two, because that kind of leads to this being a simulation, to this being just some sort of programmed reality that has you could call them glitches. You could call them somebody just, punched in a code and it just changed certain aspects. So Mandela effect changes things from this being this physical reality to more of a fluid reality. It gets you away a little bit, I think, from organized religion, but maybe not too much, which is good. But it really makes you see this reality for what it is. Then I think flat Earth is huge. So I think flat Earth that's probably out of what I've spoken about here, is probably in the middle to the bottom. So flat Earth is kind of like the gateway into more advanced truth topics. You could say the health conspiracy, fake news is all below that. That could be below that. That could be above it. It just kind of depends. Even before flat Earth, I still saw the news as mostly fake, but didn't see it as like basically all fake. The world's a stage, that whole thing. Once you learn a flat Earth, then you learn the world is a stage. The news is there to deceive you. And almost all of it is basically just faked or some sort of like twist in the truth there. And then, numerology and gematria, I think those could be before flat Earth too, or they could be after. But flat Earth is a big, big piece of this puzzle. It controls your senses, so it makes you thinking we live on a globe. It changes the way that you perceive things with your senses. It doesn't make you trust your senses. So if your senses over the last 3 years, hey, I don't think anybody's really getting sick out of the ordinary. I don't really think anything's going on. Well, if you believe we live on a spinning globe, you don't trust your senses that we're not moving. And, you look out, go to the beach, you look at the horizon, it looks pretty damn flat and level to me. So if you think that you're wrong, that no, that's curved, you might think that something's been going on these last 3 years. So they can get away with their psyops very easily. And that's just something that's taught at a young age, when you're really young and, maybe 4, 5, 6 years old. It's like on Sesame Street, it's on cartoons. And then you get taught that in school as well. They're really jamming it into your head. This earth is not flat. It is a globe. It is a ball. That is a foundational lie. So yeah, I would say soul trap number one, Mandela effect number two. The other ones are kind of interchangeable. But yeah, I guess flat earth would be number 3 on that list. So it would go, lowest would be flat earth, then Mandela effect, then soul trap. Those other ones, numerology, the world's a stage, fake news, health conspiracy. That kind of all works together, that the world is a stage. The world is a stage, is a major truth topic out there. Anybody who denies that, they've either not done enough research or they are gatekeeping in some way. So, appreciate any of those who have stuck it through to the very end here. Obviously, in the future, I'd love to do one with some visuals. I'd love to do a Mandela effect video as well with some visuals and some other of these topics too. But I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments section below what other topic I'm missing. Like what's one that I'm missing here? It could be something that I have looked into and I just sort of, it's not something that I see as being a top 3 or 4. Yeah, definitely the soul trap is huge. Those other ones, the Mandela, the flat earth, they ain't going to help you exit this matrix. And that's why soul trap's number 1. They can help you get closer to it. But you still need to think for yourself and push through, because there's a lot of gatekeeping within Mandela effect. There's a lot of gatekeeping within flat earth where they're not going to be open-minded to this being a so-called trap. They're going to say it's God, it's the creator, it's loving. Okay, the flat earth, that, the globe, it's hiding God. Mandela effect, that's God changing these things for your betterment. I've even heard that God's changing reality through the Mandela effect, the whole Mandela effect topic, so that truthers like us can see that to communicate with us, essentially, or to see that this is a fluid reality and to not take the material realm so literally. And see that, hey, this material stuff ain't important, so it's going to help you worship me, the creator, more. And I used to buy into that shit. Now, since I've evolved past that and started thinking for myself and seeing things for what they are, even if it doesn't feel good, then I'm like, boom, soul trap makes a lot of sense. Let me know what you think in the comments below.